going to start this off. Number 3.
Okay, Lift Lab episode, Liftcast. We're still working out the name.
Yeah.
There's been some interesting suggestions, but we are going to get down to business today. We talked about having this be a podcast that talks about training and kind of like some of the science and principles and things like that behind it. So, we are a sports performance facility that has a weightlifting team. Today we're specifically going to talk about assessing the athletes, and that's going to kind of gear a little bit towards weightlifting, but some of it is general to the sports performance community. Anytime we go anywhere, Tall Dan. For those of you that are just listening.
Good looking Dan. You didn't mention your shaved face.
All right, just so nobody freaks out.
Freshly shaven face.
Yeah, I am not a new character here. I, for the first time in about 8 years, no longer have a beard, and every member at our gym seems to be just losing their shit over it.
Yeah.
Like a man's never shaved before. And I know it's been a long time.
You're like a Benjamin Button.
I do look pretty young. I'm going to be a dead baby here soon. So, hey, podcast is off to a great start. So anyway, Tall Dan always gets brought along as the movement guru, okay? And I think this has to do with his comprehensive study in PRI and other like movement specialty modalities and things like that. But the important thing for people to understand is that, we work as a team, right? So he does have a little bit more area of expertise in that area, and we're going to kind of walk through what our assessment process looks like. What was kind of neat was USAW actually reached out and asked for us to talk about this at length, just so they could get a better understanding of what we were doing to help in the talent development of athletes that come in. And before we get into the X's and O's of it, I want to just say a little bit about how you grow and develop your club.
Okay, go ahead.
If I may.
You may. That's not on the docket, but that's the wild part.
We actually have notes here this time. Remember last time we held up blank paper, but we actually have a schedule of what we're going to cover. But when you grow and you develop your club, you can do it a variety of different ways. And ours is very simple. Like we get people in off the street that have zero athletic ability whatsoever.
Some or zero, which would be...
Yeah, we don't want to totally insult our people.
So, some, but like a college background, maybe like an exercise background. Like you never know. I mean, they could have been like skateboarding and doing drugs when they were a kid, which I guess would be a recreation background.
Correct.
Right?
So when you get those people in, you're going to assess them and identify them and try to figure out what they do well and what they can improve on and what's the area that you can help them improve the most, the fastest. Other clubs will recruit like nationally, get people in. You'll see that on like the collegiate type club levels, like the Lindenwood's a good example. Like they're going to recruit nationally to have
East Tennessee State.
Exactly, they can get those kids that come out of the high school programs, get them to join in that junior ranks and try to develop them from there. You have people that recruit nationally. That would be like your juggernauts of the world where they're going to reach out, they're going to support you as an athlete, and you're going to hop into their system. And so everybody's kind of just picking up athletes differently, right?
Yeah, and none of them are bad, right? They're all different,
100%.
Right? It's like however you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, everybody wants to talk shit, right? They could always be like, oh, well, if I could recruit the country and pay people to train, I'd make Olympians too. You might. You also might not.
Maybe like, you got to try.
Right, exactly. So
or not.
Exactly. You got to do your thing and either roll with it or do what you got to do to be successful. This is just kind of how we're doing it, and we're finding success in what we're doing. We like our way. We're perfectly comfortable knowing that we're not going to get all the former Division I throwers that couldn't quite be Olympians, and all the former Division I gymnastics girls that couldn't make the Olympics. Whatever. We're understanding that.
Might get some. You might get one.
Correct. We're going to get a handful of those a year. But other than that, we're going to get people that are recreationally interested. We're also doing a lot in the community to try to bolster the youth awareness of Olympic weightlifting. Because first, people have to know that it's a thing before you can get the athletes in a system to develop them. In Indiana, it was like, it depends on how you look at it. To me, it's gorgeous because it's wide open. Right? Nobody knows what weightlifting is. So that's a lot of people you can reach and talk to about weightlifting. The downside to that is nobody knows what weightlifting is.
Right. So you got to get out there and do it.
Exactly. You got to be out there hustling. And like along those lines, Hassle-Free Barbell, they start a high school program that has like probably 400 kids in it, and that's great. Like that's their youth development program starting right there. So we've kind of covered the whole gamut of how you can put athletes in and out of the system and develop them. Right? We don't have a high school that's just feeding this kid. We're kind of a mixed match of go out and just find people whoever. And then develop them the best we can, and then hope that through developing them, they'll spread the word and help us grow our club and things like that.
I mean, we're in a city where it's big enough, and there's a university right down the street. There's like 4 right down the street, and like you got to reach out and see who's interested, and like be aware, and you got to go after them. I think the theme there is like the hustle part of it, right? Like not the complaining part. So
Absolutely.
That's a big.
Get off your ass, grow your club. It's however you got to do it. If that's emailing people and say, I'm going to pay you $4,000 a month to train here, great, do that.
Right.
If that's going out to high schools and telling kids like, hey, we'll get you off the streets and just give you an activity to do, great, do that. Like, it doesn't matter. Just quit bitching about what other people are doing. Do your own damn thing. Do your own way to develop it. Exactly. And I mean, we have a full appreciation for people that are hustling in whatever manner it may be. So let's talk about our system, and I'll kind of kick it off with just the overall structure, and then we'll let DG walk you through the particulars about the assessment. So at Lift Lab, we basically have our athletes classified into 3 levels: level 1, level 2, and level 3. Okay, level 3 being quote unquote the more advanced, level 1 being the more beginner phases of training. And when we put them in those levels and they come in the door, we're looking at where they're at from a total standpoint. So if they already have a weightlifting background, were they, on a national level, are they just getting started? We look at their training consistency, their raw strength, their technical proficiency, and any other special considerations that there may be. Okay, so
we can talk about those more as we get into it.
Exactly. So we're going to have those basic criteria in the back of our mind when we start assessing an athlete. But no matter, before we put them in a level, we're going to bring them in and start the movement assessment. And why don't you walk us through what that assessment looks like?
Yeah. So, a couple things, and I was actually talking to somebody who has a video of the lecture that we gave at the USAW CERT, which is pretty good. Like, I thought it was pretty well thought out. And when it goes back to kind of the guru aspect of the movement, I know like that word gets thrown around a lot, and I'm really not, or I don't want to consider that, but like I'm not a physical therapist. I'm not a doctor, right? I don't have that level of education, but mainly just like exposure, experience, right? And like kind of educated enough, but maybe not too much, because I think there's a fine line there somewhere where it doesn't become practical anymore. So when we look at people when they first come in, like we're going to do a couple things. Number one, we're going to put them through a movement assessment based on the demands of weightlifting, and we look at not only how they move, like with like the particular tests, but also can you do what I'm asking you to do. Right, so like that's a big part of assessment. Is it's like, can you ask the athlete, can you do this, and like even maybe show them if they can get in those positions, and they can also make those sort of connections. So there you just get a very sort of general, coachable assessment without even going into movement. Right, so that's
an awareness,
right?
Assessment.
Just a very aware assessment, right? And like people like to argue, and I think it's a young coach problem where it's like, do I do the FMS? Do I do PRI? Which test is the best, which is the one I want to see the best result on, this, that, or the other, right? So like not arguing too many X's and O's, but we do put people through like an FMS sort of style assessment where we want to see like, can they overhead squat properly with no load? Like how well do their shoulders move? Like how well do their hips move? How well does their lower leg and ankle move? Like what are these main components that we need? And if they can, demonstrate like enough mobility or like enough control and stability, then that's what we want. And then we kind of have the example of somebody that maybe has too much, right? So we need this like middle ground. And like if I had to like find the perfect person, it'd probably be somebody that comes in with an FMS score of like all 2s, right? Which is not perfect, right? Which is like what you want out of the FMS. And like we use that system probably the most in the gym with everybody because it's easy. You can do it in 7 to 10 minutes.
It's repeatable.
It's
right.
super. Yeah, you can retest a bunch of times, right, on somebody, and you can get like an actual like improvement. But like not falling in love with it and going too far down the rabbit hole where like everybody needs like a 70-point assessment. Right, and then like obviously we talked about levels like 1, 2, and 3, and like people that have pain or people that have some sort of injury already, they definitely fall into that 3 category that we'll talk about later.
Sure.
So that's one way to kind of rule out like whether that person's ready to weightlift or not.
Exactly, and just to note, like that FMS itself doesn't put them in a level.
No,
it is it's laying the foundation for what we anticipate they'll need. So, for example, if we come in, we do the first FMS test, the overhead squat, and they say their goal is to break American record in the snatch, yet they can't put their arm above their head. This is a problem, right? Probably not ready to go into customized, specialized programming.
Probably not right away. Although they might be so bad that they are. That's like the other thing, right? Like if you're so bad, like you can't do the basics, and you might need that much attention, that much, customization right away.
And it's important to note that we're also as a component of that FMS, we're individually evaluating their hip, ankle, and shoulder mobility.
Right.
And what I found fascinating is, just a little leak here, but I have the new course material that USAW has put out with Tomasz Fairhair being the new director of education.
Good pronunciation there.
Yeah, I'm working on it. And Tomasz is super legit, super smart guy. Like I've really enjoyed reading through the manual, but there was definitely more consideration into joint angles and individual hip, ankle, and shoulder movement, right? And this is something that wasn't emphasized maybe as much before, to the point where he's breaking it down by angles, right? So like he's expecting coaches to know what a 50-degree dorsiflexion looks like, right? So I'm not sure that the U.S. coaches are ready for that. Personally, I love it, right? Because my background, a lot of it has dealt with a lot of foreign weightlifting concepts and things like that. So anyway, I think it's an interesting marriage to what we're doing into kind of the movement in the direction that USA Weightlifting wants to go.
Yeah, and I think like whatever we can add to the conversation is always like going to help, right? And like sometimes like with assessment, you mentioned that like with the ankle, right? So like kind of backing up, we definitely do look at the total, then we look at each of them, and sometimes you might blame, I have bad ankles, so I can't squat, right? There might be another problem somewhere else. It's like that's going to play into your overall movement. So that's just a huge thing to look at. So
sure.
So when somebody when somebody has like a 1 on an overhead squat, you might be like, I have bad ankles. You might go test them and they might be fine. It's like, well, that's not the problem, right? Like they just can't put their body in that position. So instead of kind of trying to beat the door, down with like mobility exercise or something useless, you might just try something else and it's going to work.
Absolutely.
Right? So that's kind of the overall general movement. And I know I didn't get into like too much, which will probably be a separate podcast if we really wanted to separate it out, because you can go way down the rabbit hole,
right?
And that's probably not the place for that right now.
Yeah, and it can be tough too without visuals of what you're looking for. So you're kind of limited by the medium, but I think now would be a good time to talk about the difference in the level 1, the level 2, and the level 3 programming, because we've hit on it a little bit. And we talked about the level, we'll go in reverse order here. The level 3 being the most advanced. Okay, so that's going to be 100% customized programming. All right, and typically where we see that is with athletes that have worked from level 1 and level 2 and are now ready to compete on the national stage. With the one exception being if somebody's so bad and so immobile and so beat up and maybe even cat piss weak,
right?
To steal a term from one of my favorite strength coaches all time. Cat piss weak. That they need customized programming just to get them up to a level where they can hop in or get back to like the level 1 and level 2 program, right? So we're anticipating with our level 1 training that there is a foundation of something, because we're not generally taking people from zero athletic background.
Right.
So
Sometimes we are, which might be a level 0 where you start from like square one. This is how you hold the bar, but that's that's kind of a day-to-day program how you need to make it.
Absolutely. And then, like I said, we'll work backwards, but the level 2 programming will be a lot more percentage-based work, and we'll try to increase the volume of lifts from level 1 to level 2. And then on that level 2, we're looking for people that are ready to compete locally and maybe some national level competitions that have a little lower totals, possibly your AO series, and maybe some youth junior event types like that.
And sort of like the thing we talked about yesterday, where like the training calendar of that, right? Where each level has a different calendar. And like level 3, right, is that national calendar. We're going to people to perform at the American Open, nationals, whether on like university nationals, like whatever level they're at, but that revolves around that calendar. And that level 2 is more of that sort of maybe regional or local calendar. It's kind of a mix,
right on,
kind of like depending on like where they're going.
Absolutely, and that's an important component to the levels programming, right? So if you're level 3, let's say for example, and you're getting ready for Worlds, we haven't been fortunate enough to have anybody there yet, but in Worlds is every year in November, right? So your calendar is November to November versus somebody that's a level 2, and they might be looking at AO series in Grand Rapids is one way of coming up, which is September to September. So it's going to shift where you're at in your training blocks. And then just to round out the level 1, think about this is kind of our basic beginning block, and 0% of your work is going to be based on percentage,
right?
Okay, because it's irrelevant, right? If you think about if you're a beginner in training and I tell you to do 12 by 2 on the minute at 70%, well, what's 70%? 70% of what? What you think you could do one time,
right? Or what you did one time, right?
Or exactly.
Or 70% for that day, right?
For sure.
It's just a crapshoot.
And typically with the level 1 stuff, we're going to have our athletes spending some more of their time doing drills and accessory work. And load is not really much of a focus, right? It's just learning the movements, learning the skills. Here's drills and skill work to do to get you to learn how to snatch and clean and jerk. And then during that period, one thing that we're pretty big on is getting them as strong as possible. Okay, and a lot of people disagree with this approach, but our thought is you get them as strong as you can now and start working on that now.
Right.
Then when their technique catches up, they'll start hitting some weights. Right. And so we always have, if you look at the progression of the lifters, they typically always hammer out like some pretty impressive clean and jerks, and their snatches a little lagging behind. Well, the reason being is you can get away with more brute strength in the clean and jerk than you can in the snatch.
The old grunt and shove.
Exactly.
Type of mentality.
Exactly. Right. So, that's part of our program and our process and kind of how we're working through with people. And there's plenty that would disagree with that and say, you should teach them with a dowel rod first and make them do 10 million perfect reps with a PVC pipe before they can do whatever. And that's somebody else's approach. That's not ours, and that's not what we're going to do. And then when they are in that level 1 program, we are trying to get them to compete locally pretty often. So we won't taper for those meets. We won't do training cycles specifically for those meets. We'll just have them show up and start learning the basics of competition. Right? This is what it's like to warm up. This is how you weigh in. This is how your singlet goes on this way. Here's how you can put the tape on your thumb, like the basics of weightlifting. You got to wait for the down signal, right? Like you got to bring your feet together, stuff that they need to start learning now.
Right. It's all of a sudden to be quiet. There's no music playing. While you're lifting, or maybe there is, right?
Or maybe there is,
but everybody's looking at you.
Sure.
And you got to get used to that.
And you're on the platform in your underwear.
Right.
Here we go.
And everybody's looking.
Yeah.
Staring right at you.
Just laser beaming you. So basically, with that, we want to take. That's the general basis from assessment to level 1 to level 2 to level 3. And ideally, we're walking the athlete through those levels, okay? And it's like, what's the time period for that? Well, it kind of just depends. It depends on how somebody develops. It depends on how they adjust. It depends on how old they are, their maturity. There's a lot of things that go into it. We're just saying we have this structure to put people in that has led to some success. In general, I like to tell people to think of a year at each phase, right? So you'd be a year level 1, a year level 2, and at the end of that second year, you'll start getting your numbers up. You'll start getting a technical proficiency if you're consistent in training, and you'll be ready for that level 3 program. Right. And so it's basically a pyramid, right? And if we're looking at our athletes, we have the base of the pyramid's level 1, the middle is level 2, and then the tip of the top's level 3, right? And the sport rewards longevity and consistency. Right?
And I think that's probably the X factor in terms of like what we mentioned with total technique, consistency, and strength. Like if you're consistent, right? We probably promoted some people to level 2, like Deshaun, for example, like the Serbian snowplow. Right? He like he's like super consistent.
Right.
And you wouldn't think, like not a super high total, techniques, hit or miss.
It's gotten a lot better.
Some days gotten a ton better.
You're talking about a guy that couldn't walk and chew gum at the same time.
Right. And like no one misses like he misses. Like he's proud of it, right? Yeah, but like super consistent, and that's enough to carry you from like one level to the next.
Sure.
Sometimes like when you start getting there.
Yeah, I think in the beginning we overemphasized, this is kind of a mistake that we made. We overemphasized total, right? So if people had national total, we put them in level 3. It's kind of, in hindsight, it was a mistake. For example, a couple years back, we had a kid that came in, power snatched 130, cleaned and power jerked 180 as a 105. Well, he's a national total right there,
right?
And he's relatively never done the lifts, right? Super strong, not technically proficient. Which, side note, is also the most dangerous lifter that you can have in your gym.
I think Mark has cited that a couple times when he's been here, right? Your most dangerous athlete's the one with the most strength and a little technique.
Yep. Because so that bar is going to go flying.
Right.
Where it lands, nobody knows.
Right. Those arms are going to bend, and it's on your head.
Yep. It might be on, best case scenario, it's on your head.
Right.
Worst case scenario, it's on somebody else's head.
Right.
So I think like that's a mistake that we made, and we kind of have tried to dial that in and dial it back. The other thing too that once,
and I think like one thing like on that is like that's been to our benefit though, for sure, like as a team, and also
Absolutely.
to their benefit, right? Like we can keep making an excuse for them, like even though they're good, right? But like without sugarcoating it, like taking them back a step and saying like you need to fix these things, right? You're a level 3 with level 0 problems. Right.
Absolutely.
And like you need to fix those, otherwise you're never going to progress in your sport. And it's not the time to overlook it when we've only had them for 6 months or a year.
Absolutely.
Right. So the longevity is going to be there.
Yep. And I think that people get caught up too, and they're like they view level 3 as a goal. Like I want to be level 3, right? But they also when we've had to have conversations with them, realizing the value of level 1, level 2. And here's the other thing, it changes. Natalie's my wife, by the way. And Natalie has competed nationally, and then, she's blessed us with some kids, and she took some time off, right? And so she came back, and she was, a few kilos over her weight class, and
out of a training routine.
Has
right? to deal with rugrats.
Yeah, deal with the kids all day, and so she's not consistent. God knows where her total was at the time. Her training volume was down. She hopped in a level 1, right? And now she's been climbing back, to being a level 3, and she's has her eye on the national calendar. Her weight's down, her training volume's up, like those sort of things. You can go in and out, and that's okay. That's part of the developmental process, right? And then the other thing when we get to that level 3 is it's custom to the point that you're going to do whatever you're most inefficient at, right? So when you're at level 1 and level 2, we know that you need more technical proficiency, more strength. Okay, once you start hitting that level 3, you're identifying what your largest weakness is, and we are attacking that with pure vigor, right? And we have, I know this is almost Antichrist talk here. We've taken squats out of people's programs, right? Like you don't need to squat anymore.
Right.
Okay, and because you have enough leg strength,
which like you're kind of hesitant at. Right?
Exactly.
That's a huge kind of roll of the dice.
But here was the Olympic trials that were in Salt Lake City. Leading up to that, Piros we were courting him, you would say, right? So he was there, and one of the nights was on Thursday or Friday. They brought Piros in, and we were allowed to just sit there and ask him questions. And
which we have on YouTube. You can check it out.
Exactly. But one of the questions on there was how much did you squat, or how much was your all-time best front squat or whatever, and the answer was like 290 or something like that.
Like 295. Like I think I remember it's 295 front squat at 92 kilos and like 325 back squat.
And without being prompted, he was like, I think it was too much, right? And that was kind of the okay for me to say, all right, maybe we don't have to squat. Because
maybe the GOAT is right.
Yeah, exactly. Piros talks, you listen. You listen to Piros, all right? And the point is he obviously had enough leg strength. Well, if you have a ton of leg strength, maybe your time in training could be better served doing something else. Right, so we fight this all the time, right? Like, let's just call him out, Butters, right? So Butters all the time, he wants to front squat more, and we're like, you could put 30 kilos on your total by improving your snatch technique,
right?
Because this is a guy that's snatching 125, clean jerking 185, right? Strength isn't the issue here, right? It's getting the bar in proper placement,
right?
All right, and you have to ask yourself with things like squatting, since we're on that topic. If I took squats out, where would I save? Right. So my athlete's probably going to be a little bit fresher, probably going to have more time to dedicate towards doing the things that are the most critical.
Right.
Right. And people forget that if you're squatting a ton of weight, that's beating the piss out of your body.
It's going to take a toll at some point
because you're standing up every snatch, every clean. Like your leg strength is probably going to be there. I think there's probably a balance between not squatting and squatting every day.
Right. There's a middle ground.
For sure. And I distinctly remember Colin Burns talking about his best. Oh man, I wish I could remember the numbers, but let's just get close. He was like, at the time, his best clean and jerk was 200 or 195. And he's like, my best front squat's 205. Right. And this was, I think, before he was working with Max, but the point is he is a guy that was maximizing his maximal strength, right? He's such a technical lifter, he could place the bar to a spot that he wanted where he could use his maximal leg drive, right? If you can't place the bar to what you want, where you want it, then that maximal strength has no bearing, right? And there's all kinds of calculators and bullshit and
formulas.
Yeah, it's guesswork at best. Right? Like, we can all agree that you need to be strong, but there's no correlation between a snatch balance of 180 kilos and what your actual snatch is. There's just too many moving parts, right?
Well, it's a different lift.
Right. And a back squat is certainly not a clean and jerk or a snatch, right?
This is true.
A snatch balance certainly isn't a snatch, right? The snatch deadlift, like we understand that there's a relationship between strength and power and your best lifts, but we got to be smart enough to understand the totality of the process, right? So going back to our assessment, if we get somebody that comes in off the street, and this hasn't happened, we have a good example of Nathan Barnett. He's one of our 105 lifters. He came from powerlifting. This dude was deadlifting 700 pounds raw, and
right away.
Exactly, and he was having a lot of problems with his knees and hips, and he was low bar back squatting, and he wanted to make the transition to weightlifting, and I was like, just stop. Stop with the strength. Right? It's not going to deteriorate to a point of you being cat piss weak. Right? And when it does, we'll pick it up again. But let's just take some time to learn the lifts. And to his credit, he did it.
Right. And he already listened.
And he listened and he checked his ego, which is hard for a 20-year-old kid.
Right. And made it to U25s.
Won U25s.
U25s, made it to nationals.
Yeah, exactly. Just lifting really well and taking a step back from the strength aspects of it.
And now he's running through, 5-yard ladders with a football, diving into tires.
Yeah, well, yeah, that was pretty funny. But
practicing old running back skills.
Yeah.
There was a point that I was going to make for our level 3s or level
Was it
twos. It was a good one.
Mm.
I need to remember it. Or it'll come to me and
You
I'll
have
shout it
that
out.
pin, and next time you think right with it.
Yeah, right. Man, that'd be such a smart move.
So, all right. I guess to wrap this up, though, walk people back through it. When you come in the door, have a process for people. That's the main take-home message. You don't have to copy our process. You don't have to put people in programs the way that we put them in programs. But the point is we have a distinct structure. Nobody comes into Lift Lab and just starts lifting. And nobody comes into Lift Lab and follows somebody else's program.
Right. It's all in-house.
Exactly. So if you come here, you're going to come through our process. We're going to put you in the levels, and we're going to coach you through those levels and develop you to be the athlete that you can be. Okay, it starts with the movement screen and assessment and a general, in the assessment, a general look at your Olympic lifts, your ability to take coaching and feedback. From there, we put you into level 1, level 2, or level 3. Most likely, you're going to be in that 1 to 2, probably a level 1.
Default, you can always default to 1,
exactly.
right? For a little bit. And
What's
if somebody catches on, then next thing you know, they go to 2.
Exactly.
And then we can take them wherever.
Exactly. And there's no we don't have to vote, right? We can just decide you're going up, you're going down, and that's that. Because we want, the best for the athletes. So put them in that level 1, that level 2, that level 3. To recap, the level 1 is not a percentage-based training program. It's you're going to do the lifts, you're going to do some skills and drills. We're going to get you super strong. When you move to level 2 and your technical proficiency is starting to be there, then we'll start working in some percentage-based work, and more of your volume will come from the actual full versions of the lifts or the power versions of the lifts. And then level 3, we go to all custom. And one other note I didn't talk about is definitely going to be a separate podcast, but for the level 3s, we basically have another sub-pyramid that talks about the development process for their special strengths, right? So that'll be another part that's pretty good, and that's based on a lot of Eastern European research, and it's just kind of the conglomerate of what we believe in for athletic development. And that level 3 pyramid is something that we also use for our sports performance athletes, right? So those are all good things that we can talk about, or will talk about on another podcast for another day.
And I was going to throw in the accessory work, but we can talk about that when we talk about special strength. So
exactly. That'll be perfect.
That'll all be, because there's a lot of things. It's more than just the things you don't want to do in accessory work.
Absolutely.
Right? So we can throw that in when we talk about special strength. Maybe that's next time. Is that 4?
I think so. I don't know.
4?
Our editor will let us know.
We should
our production manager.
We should definitely take comments.
Brian.
We should take comments on what we should call this.
Well,
I think the Liftcast might be okay. That might be taken. I don't know, the Liftcast, the lab podcast,
Labcast,
or the Labcast,
something short.
Well, we should definitely have that. So definitely leave comments, which means you had to listen or watch to the 33-minute mark. So if you made it, then you get to leave a comment.
I love it. All right.
Okay.
Until next time.
See ya.